Hi, I'm Randy Hollenbeck, and this is the Music Roundtable. Today on the show, we have Jonathan from new metal band Guides.
Hey everyone, awesome to be here with you, Randy. It's been too long.
This is a problem because the closer you come, I think, to another human being, the more completely mysterious and unreachable that person becomes.
I want more. I want to conquer the world, destroy, take no precedence, rebuild, fuck the status quo, misunderstood. I want to be heard. Lower your shields, expose all the nerve. I'm still reaching for you. Pull at the roots, need you to feel. We cannot grow. If we don't damage ourselves, no, we cannot.
The last time we talked was on an episode of Backstage Pass at Mr. Small's Funhouse. You were there with Riding with Killers. It was April 4th, 2024. Can you give us a little catch up on what you've been up to over the last 2 years?
A little catch up. Okay, it's gonna take a while, but I guess high level. I'm when we talked then, we talked about new songs, that we were playing that night, and that we would be hopefully going into the studio probably that summer. What was that, 2024? To get new material out, which at the time we had just put out our first EP at the end of 2023. So, I mean, we were hoping to have a quick turnaround and get new stuff out, in 2024. But really, that's kind of the origin of to where we ended up today. So not long after that show, it would have been in May of 2024. We ended up playing Rock on the Hill Festival in Hanover, PA, and we weren't originally scheduled to play that, but through some things that ended up happening, the headliner of that festival is Simon Says, which, if you follow us, and you kind of know that where this is going, but I've been Simon Says has been one of my favorite bands since I was a kid. We'll get into more of that later, but at the time, Taproot's manager was working with Simon Says and knew that I love Simon Says, but the situation worked out that Simon Says was flying in from California to play this festival in Hanover, PA. Well, that wasn't the original plan, and so they had to get here and play the thing, but they also needed gear and just some kind of like boots on the ground assistance when they got here, I guess. So we ended up playing that festival, and Simon Says used our gear for their headline set. So we just got to go out there, do our thing, but then we're hanging out with Simon Says all day, and it was awesome for me because, again, one of my favorite bands since I was a kid. But really, when we were, all of that was being set up, going into the festival, I was working closely with their guitar player, Z-Roc, Zach Diebels, understanding what they needed, making sure, we could, get all of that and kind of work problem solving together. And so, we had kind of a rapport going into it, but, we clicked and connected at the festival. And, at one point he mentioned, hey, like I'm a producer, like I'm trying to find more rock band clients to work with. I'm doing a lot of like hip hop stuff, but I'd love to, get more into producing bands, and we should talk about working together. So throughout the summer we stayed in touch, and we decided to move forward and work together on production. So step one was for us to send him the demos that we had been working on, which are the songs we would have been talking about last time we talked. So we sent him the demos, and he actually scrapped everything. So that's kind of the short answer, the first explanation of why it took so long from that point to get to where we are today. Because we started the process all over again in the fall of 2024. So we basically started from scratch with our entire creative process, our approach to everything. And, some of that was, I think, Z-Roc just kind of wanting to work with it from the beginning, but also there was feedback too at that time too, right? Of from what he heard and where it needed to go. And so starting fresh is kind of gives you that clean slate to apply that feedback, right? As you're going and work it into the thought process from the beginning rather than trying to rework everything. So, as hard as that was to hear at the times, I think we were just excited to go record and work with Z-Roc, but we had to reset. And the one thing was, kind of rethinking our creative process and our chemistry of how we go about it. And that all happened. Right. So it was kind of one step at a time from there, in writing process, so that we weren't, that it was I guess it was kind of more of a cautious thing at that point, right? We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, right? So we went through instrumentals, kind of worked with Z-Roc to and got them approved before we went into vocals. And so it was a pretty phased out process that took about a year just to get the songs written and for us to kind of figure out what we were going to make together. And it was very, it wasn't like a daily thing, but we were passing ideas back and forth throughout that time and sharing, drafts of things as we went. But I think it was that reset point was kind of all it took. We took the feedback and ran with it. And that was, it's gone smoothly from there. But so that's kind of why it's been so long, because we kept playing shows. Obviously everyone's seen us out and about and we've been active, but creatively we had to reset, and it took about a year for us to get back to, okay, now we can get in the studio and do something. So
okay, with that reset came losing a few band members along the way.
Yep.
And who did you get to replace? Are they permanent members, or are they just fill-ins for now?
So I guess the one thing is, on what I'm learning is that this is just part of the game, right? It's part of the process of growing as a band, right? And I think you and I had talked about this, in maybe not in interviews, but just conversations we've had, that it's just you're going to learn kind of a lot about people as it gets more serious, and where I've been kind of saying, I guess, for a while too, that I realized that it was going to evolve, right? The lineup was going to evolve, and you're going to hit points where it might be too much for someone, or they don't want to go to that next level or take that next step. And so just something I'm learning is just, if you're going to do it, you're going to probably have to deal with that, right? And look at any band that you love, that's doing it, for their career. How many original lineups are really intact or stay intact? It's always, everyone likes to think that that's that's how it works, but pretty much everyone's had to make lineup adjustments as they go. So we're no different. So yeah, that's been something we've had to deal with. And our bass player Mocha left I think it was in the end of 2024, and we had lots of time to work through that, and he really was committed to playing with us, at least locally, until we find a replacement. And it was we didn't really we didn't really say much about it at the time, but we went through a pretty long recruiting process with that, and found our current bass player, who's also handling some guitar duties too for us, Zach Hess. And this was not intentional, but his first show with us was when we opened for Seven Dust. So that was he did great, but for me, being the control freak that I am, I was a little nervous about. I was nervous for him, right? Because he also hadn't played that many shows either. So I was nervous for Seven Dust, so I could only imagine. But he proved me wrong, and that was a hell of a baptism by fire kind of situation. But he had been working with us since the fall, like before that, for several months up to that point. So he had plenty of time to get comfortable with the material, and we had been practicing all the way through, so it wasn't like he wasn't prepared. But it's that show, like, you don't really know anything about anything until you get to a show together, right? Because that's kind of it's, you can only prepare so much, and so there's things that happen dynamically on stage and stuff that you need to have. That chemistry is important. So yeah, so Zach became a full-time member. Not long after that, we made that announcement in it's in like the spring of 2025. Our guitar player situation, didn't work out quite the same way, and that was not something that we were planning. So that's been an adjustment this year for us. But our friend Aaron Pep from Desolence has been filling in and helping us out for everything we've needed to do, and something that will, right now our focus is on the releases and just kind of telling that story. So the lineup adjustments and where we're going with that next is something that we'll be talking about and discussing more later.
Okay. Before we go into like talking about the songs and stuff, I just want to get a couple questions out of the way. You grew up listening to and like looking up to a lot of these bands that you've opened up for: Taproot, Orgy, Cold, Simon Says, Seven Dust, Power Man 5000, 12 Stones. What was it like to get that like opportunity to do that? And was that like something you've always like dreamed of?
Yeah, of course. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's it never gets old. I think that was literally what I said when we opened for Power Man a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of, I think, aspects to that. Yeah, I mean, that's when I was a kid, that's who I was all pretending to be, right? Like, I jump around in my bedroom with like a fake microphone and pretend to be Aaron Lewis from Stained, or Matt from Simon Says, or Steve from Taproot. And it's like, that was like how I played as a kid. And so like the dream, the fantasy was that like you're on stage with them, right? That and get to, be the band that's on that tour or whatever. So yeah, it's a dream come true. It's an honor, right? Like it's not everybody gets these opportunities. Like, I mean, they're earned, right? But it's like, it doesn't always happen the way you want it, right? And so it's like every time we get that opportunity, I never take it for granted. It's special, and it, it means a lot to me. but like it's cool to be able to give back in a way too, right? Like we're supporting these shows, we're selling tickets, like we're going out there first and warming up the crowd, and like we're providing a service and doing a job and helping promote the show. So it's like we're also I kind of see it as like getting to pay homage and give back and say thank you in that way too. And I get my moment on stage where I get to say my kind of sentimental thing about each band every time we get to do it, and it's always a different story. But yeah, it's honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. Like I don't know, like very 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 fortunate to get to always to have these to be able to do these things and have these experiences. I consider each one once in a lifetime, so I can never take it for granted. But like the last 3 years of getting to do this, I'm having the time of my life. Like I don't see, like, there's really no other way to put it.
And you're making connections and you're networking. Has that helped out too?
Yeah, and that's the thing about it too, right? Like not all of those experiences are one to one, right? Like so Taproot and Simon Says are two bands that like we've really connected with and have more personal relationships with, like outside of these experiences, right? But it doesn't always go that way either, right? And doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just that like every band and person is different in how they handle their business and how approachable they are and all that kind of stuff. So it's I feel very fortunate and lucky that we've gotten to have experiences with and connect with bands like Taproot and Simon Says, because they've I mean when we'll get into the production stuff with Z-Roc, but I mean the connections that we've made with them have been extremely valuable to, or however you want to say it, to what we're everything that's kind of happened to us since, right? Like it's for us really like opened a lot of doors that I feel very like blessed to have access to some of the connections that we do, as well. Even Bob Bradley, our publicist, is someone who I was introduced to from Taylor Roberts, but also has had a long-standing relationship for many years with Z-Roc. So you kind of connect all those dots, and it's like a lot easier to kind of trust what you're getting when you have those types of people vouching for things or for other people, and that like it's all trust, right? There's a trust thing about it. So yeah, it's been and not just, I don't want to make it sound like it's all just about like career advancement, because that's not it either. These connections, these relationships, the human side of it, yeah, there's always business, but the human side of it, this has been the best part of it, the whole thing. Like the people that I've met and connected with, that are integral parts to my life now, the life that I'm living now. Like I didn't even know them 2-3 years ago. So it's just like my whole world changed that way. And like as I felt my life shifting more into this, it's like I've been kind of put into a circle with the people that I that are that I kind of need for that. And it's there's a lot of emotional support things there, right? Like when things happen that like are dramatic or stressful in this world, like you can't just go talk to anybody about it, right? You need to talk to somebody who's been through it too at that level. So that's been extremely awesome too, as I'm going through growing pains, to have kind of like big brother mentor situations with Taylor and Z-Roc, where it's like, hey, like this is okay, like you'll make it through this too.
Okay. Since you've been around in the music scene in the last 5-6 years, what is something that you would like to like see change in the music scene to make it better?
That's a loaded question. You're trying to get me in trouble. um, I think I'd like to see people just kind of be more real about what it really is, right? Like I think I don't think I'm unique in my perspective, but I choose to see things a certain way. I think that like there's a lot of I don't want to say pressure, but like there's like it's not as black and white, I think, as people want to make it. There's like multiple coexisting ideas and motivations, within the music scene, and it kind of all needs to be allowed to coexist, right? And if you're like, more goal oriented or business focused, that shouldn't allow you to kind of be able to coexist with the more DIY thing. But they seem to be kind of more opposing, conflicting concepts. But just kind of, the reality of some of these situations is that like we can all support each other, and that should be true, right? But there's also there's competition whether we like it or not. Like we talked about it, only one or two local bands might get on this opportunity to open for a national act and make that connection, right? And doesn't mean it has to be hostile competition, but if we're gonna, it's not, it doesn't do anyone any favors to kind of just say that that it's not a competitive thing, because like opportunities are limited, right? So like resources are scarce. So like that is a reality of it, right? And I think that if we were just accept that and kind of let that be a part of it, maybe there wouldn't be so many like conflicting, like, it has to be this way or that way, right? They can all be true, and it doesn't mean, and that has nothing to do with support or not, right? It's just that like, yeah, it's we're all kind of, in a lot of ways, it's every man for himself, I guess, is what the big picture of what I'm trying to say. And I think that like that comes back to like, you have to create your own opportunities, right? That's how we did it. Like we put ourselves like in situations where we had to follow bands like Heartsick and Riding with Killers, to make a cool show happen and take a risk there. And it's like, you have to make our own opportunity. And so like, not everything is going to be given. And so like, I think that expectation that like everyone should just get a fair shot at whatever stage or thing is just not the reality, right? So I think that's where some of the struggle is,
Well, you have to be aggressive and motivated and be able to speak up and take a hold of that opportunity too.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, you can't expect anything to be given to you, right? Because it's just not how it works. But then when you get it, you have to show up and like hold serve. That's what I've always said, right? Like when we go on stage after Heartsick, who's been doing this forever and is on tour all the time, and they just like it's locked in. It's like, all right, well, now we have to be that good. And so like if you're not, no one's gonna come back. So like, and that's being ambitious, right? It's being bold but that was like, that type of show, that type of opportunity, like we had to like, I'm on the line as the promoter of that show. Our reputation of the band's on the line in that show. So it's, when you do get the opportunity, you have to show up and hold serve and like, take it seriously. And I think I think putting that whole package together, right, is it's hard. It's hard. It's very hard. Like I've been trying to do this for, a long now, 25 years of my life. And it's like, I only now recently feel like I've figured like any of it out. Right. And I'm only where I'm at. So it's just like, it's hard, but like the one thing for sure is nobody's going to just give it to you. It's like, and like, I think why people just give up, because it's just like, it's always, there's never a time where it's easy. Like, okay, 3 years later, every show still has some challenge, right? No matter how many shows you play, every new, like, it's just, it never gets like just autopilot. And I think until you're like maybe, you know, Linkin Park or something, but I don't know.
Okay, so let's go into the start of the production of the record. You said you sent your demos to your producer. He said, let's start out fresh. Did he set you down and like explain what he was looking for from you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and so this was that moment for me, right? Where, okay, it took however, like, Guides gets off the ground, right? 2023, we start playing shows, we put our EP out, cool things start happening, we had some experiences. Well, the summer of 2023, I don't know at that point, is this just like my last like little hurrah, like it's a summer fling, and then all of this just kind of goes back to normal? I didn't know. So we're just kind of one step at a time. A year later, right, and we're now in end of summer 2024. You know, we're much more into it now, and it's taking it much more seriously. The goalposts have moved. We're different ambitions, much more intentional about it. So, but at the point where Z-Roc throws out all our demos, I felt like I didn't have anything. What did I have? Like there was no future, right? Because this is, and I'm being very real, and I would have told anyone this that I would have the conversation with, that the only thing, you know, between 2023 and 2025, everything holding us back was that like our EP was self-recorded, and it's not like sonically at the level where it needs to be for us to like really put any serious marketing or, you know, real promotion behind the product, right? It was a proof of concept. So, you know, we needed something better, right? And so that was always the thing holding us back. So if that's the future, when he threw all the demos out, it's like I don't have a future yet. We have to prove now that there's a future. And that was very hard to hear. And I had to grieve that personally for a few weeks, because I didn't ever think about quitting, but it was that was the moment, right? Where it was like, well, it would be really easy to quit right now, right? Because I essentially don't have anything. So I really buckled down, honestly. Like it took a few weeks to get like really into the process, but once I kind of figured out how I wanted to move forward with at least writing the demos for the new stuff, I was fortunate. I had a lot of vacation time left at the end of the year, so I set it up so I had about 6 weeks of 4-day vacation, 4-day weekends at the end of the year. So I was locked in this room in the studio Thursday night to Monday morning, just grinding, just writing instrumentals, and just until, and it's probably, so like going into the new year in 2025, I had like, you know, some of them are still in progress. There's a whole list of ideas and stuff that came out of that, but you know, the 3 that you know, in the process of releasing now were, you know, going into the new year, the 3 that were the furthest along. And so yeah, it was so to answer your question, Z-Roc had, you know, so we sent the demos in, and then we had a Zoom meeting, which was kind of like, okay, let's feedback, whatever. And that was where we, you know, found out he was scrapping everything. But, you know, the direction was, you know, if you listen to the first EP, it has a lot of progressive tendencies, right? And weird time signatures and some things that are just weird to be weird, right? And that was really, when we wrote them, that was kind of exactly what we said. So it wasn't really, it wasn't like something we felt like, oh, this is our style is to be weird like this. It was just what we did at the time. And so there were like very chaotic tendencies in a lot of the writing. So, you know, the one piece of feedback was, you know, let's strip out the chaos, right? Let's get this, like, get things flowing a little bit better. And it's like kind of like rhythmic chaos, and just kind of like, why are we changing, you know, bouncing around time signatures and stuff so much? Like, it's not really the type of band that you guys are. So, and that wasn't disappointing to hear. I understood that. And then, you know, like, in that kind of same vein, like, the challenge, the feedback was instrumentally need to create long runways for the vocals to do their thing, right? Because if you get, you know, if the instrumentals are kind of like, everything just starts conflicting and competing, but also kind of locks the vocals into a pattern, right? And it should be the other way around, right? The instrumental should be kind of providing the foundation. It doesn't mean it can't move and change, but the vocals need to be able to have the variation, because that's what people are really listening and locking into, right? So yeah, if you go, so okay, I get this feedback, you go listen to all your favorite bands, and then you understand that's exactly what's happening, right? It's just like the instrumental's pretty consistent, and doesn't mean it's not interesting, but like, it's a runway, it's a run, and so you kind of start like piecing these things together. And, you know, there was feedback about, like, you know, length of sections and length of song. And the one thing that he said that really resonated with me was, hey, where's the song going, right? Like, okay, you've got your verse and chorus, but like, now what, right? Like, it's got to go somewhere too. And so that's kind of, you know, when you listen to these new singles, it's like, it always goes somewhere, right? And come back maybe or not, but like, you're always launching off somewhere else too. And like that, you know, you gotta give people a reason to keep listening to it, right? So kind of applying all of that. And I mean, the one thing Z-Roc said when we started sending demos back was like, okay, you guys were a quick study, like, you definitely understood the feedback. And so like that, once that was established, it got a lot easier, right? Because it was like, okay, like, we understood the assignment, like, and now it's like, we have something now we have something to build on. We do have a future. So like, you know, that, but it really only was sweating that for a few weeks until we got, like, you know, until I really got into, like, back in you know, I guess into the new year or whatever. But yeah, that was my moment where I'm like, this would be the time it was easy to quit, right? Like,
Yeah, it would have been hard then. What was the critiquing happening, like, over Zoom? You were like sending him parts, or did some of that happen like in the studio where he was like, where is this going? Like, do you need to get a bridge here, or like a solo section here?
so it was both. So we you know, really that first phase that I was just describing was like, you know, the rewriting, right? So we had to kind of figure out what we were going to make, right? And so that like turned into the three, like, demos of the 3 songs that we ended up recording. But there were some other ideas being kicked around too. But like, when it came down to it, it was like, we need to go, like, we need to do something. And like, if we want to talk about something of bigger scope later, like, we can, but like, we need to do something. So there was that pressure, but also Z-Roc, you know, in initial conversations, he's like, I would never let you guys do an album. Like, we're not doing an album. Like, it's too expensive, too much time. Like, it's just like, nobody wants that, right? Like, if you release a 10-song thing and you're not like giving each song a proper release as a single, is everybody hearing song 10? Like, you're investing serious money in getting song 10 made. So like, give it its due diligence, its due, right? So that was all, album was off the table, and I didn't, you know, I was really fine with that. But so initially we got, once we like, there wasn't a whole lot of feedback on like just the initial rewrites, just green light or not, right? But once we established a green light, the rest of it was green light. So there wasn't really any steps back from there. So then it was vocals, right? So then my accident happened, actually. So that was kind of another delay that we had last year. It was literally the day that Z-Roc greenlit the 3 instrumentals, the day I got hit, because I was like stoked. I was so happy that day because it was like we're moving forward. I'm sitting in the car this literally right after I said that, and boom. So that was a setback, just as far as like the time that I thought I was going to have to write and demo vocals. At that point of the year, I was in doctor's appointments and rehab and stuff. So that really like extended. So really didn't resubmit everything with vocals until last summer. So it was mid-July when I got everything really, because the other thing was he didn't want just like bullshit lyrics or like me scatting melodies over it. Like he's like, no, I want you to write the lyrics because I want to know where you're coming from with these songs, like emotionally. I want to know what the vibe is like, and I wasn't so sure about that at first, but then once I got into it and did it, I was so glad that we did it that way, because first of all, I'm like a get it right the first time type when I'm writing like that. So like it doesn't usually change much, and it didn't. But like also, they were just so much more complete at that point, right? Like they were just so much further along, and like it was. I found myself a lot in that process, and it was very therapeutic for me, and I kind of needed that at the time. So that was good, and then we'll keep doing it that way. But like, yeah, I mean, it was just the vocals were so much more well thought out at that point with lyrics in there. So demoed everything, and then that's when we really, okay, like this is all good enough to say let's schedule the studio time, right? And let's just get the plan in place. And so at that point it was end of the summer, and we booked it for November. Z-Roc came in here, but that 2 months or so in between, we were doing pre-production virtually. So, once we had a plan established, it was the kind of more weekly Zoom sessions, took it one song at a time, gave us very specific feedback, homework assignments, things to try, take this section out, try it slower, faster, let's chop this up, chop that up. And like we had alternate versions of all of the songs with different arrangements, and it wasn't really a lot of like, at that point, pre-production wasn't really focused on any of the like attention to detail stuff. Like we weren't talking about like guitar layers and like so much, or like vocal harmonies or anything. It was just like chop it. It was more like the composition and like the arrangement stuff. And so we had like working demos that were it was mostly MIDI, so we could like move things around very easily digitally and just kind of get reproduce demos real quick. But also we were getting in the room together and jamming the stuff out to test it, because like one thing that we found that was interesting was Z-Roc wanted us his instinct was to tell us to slow pretty much everything down, and then we did, and then he like slower. So we would do it like digitally, just like with the file, and it would sound fine. Okay, like I see how this works, whatever. And we would go to play it together, and it would feel so much slower and sluggish, and we were just like, nope, it's not comfortable. It's not right. So we went back and forth on that a bunch of times too.
Were you looking for like a specific sound? Like I want to sound kind of like Deftones droning in this one song.
It wasn't so much, a set like this is what we're going for. I think it was more just like finding our identity, right, and what we really were at that point. Because I mean, when we wrote the When Everything Reverses and back in 2014, it really wasn't cool to be in a heavy band. Like, it wasn't cool to be new metal, right? Like, you think about what was going on with rock back then, it was like, Thrice and stuff like that. That was just a different, kind of veering in a different direction, and that was what was kind of more, what was cool in rock, and like I love those bands too. So that's kind of more like Thrice, A Perfect Circle. The aggressive like new metal type rock really wasn't thriving at the time. So we strayed away from it because, and kind of intentionally, we weren't really trying to be that. Well, that's really what my roots are, and what, like, that's what I, given the choice, would want to do. So it's much more appropriate now, which is great because there's more of a space for it. But I think, the thing with working with Z-Roc, outside of him being like someone I've always like admired, and like one of my heroes in his band, but the part of it was, okay, he's working with somebody who's done what we're trying to do, right? And like, he fits that description perfectly, right? Like, whether you're want to compare it to Deftones or Taproot or Simon Says themselves or any of those influences, like he's made those records, right? He's done that. So it's like, and I think in a lot of ways he brought that out in us more too, right? Because like he knew exactly, like, and that was what was cool communicating with him, right? And I don't, it would be hard, I think, especially people that we have access to find somebody who would understand the references, right? So perfect example, in Drain, the single we put out in May, and you get in the bridge, Tim's doing this cymbal thing, right? And that wasn't in it until the day before we recorded it. And we were doing a pre-production. We did like a live pre-production session at our practice space. And Z-Roc came in with that idea, and he referenced track 7 on this Stain's first album, Dysfunction, A flat. And he's like, here, it's this thing. And like, it's like, this is the example. It's like this obscure Stain song that I know that reference exactly, right? So it's like, he's pulling those references for us, and it's like, we're on the exact same wavelength, right? So it's like, it was, it couldn't be really more. And then it was like even weirder stuff. Like, he told Tim at one point, he's like, Tim's drumming, it reminds me of, the drummer of Blindside. And it's like another, like, I love Blindside, but it's another obscure new metal, like post-hardcore reference. But I went back and listened. I was like, he's right. This is absolutely right about that.
Yeah, that's good that like he was aligned with you and understood what you guys needed and what the song needed,
Well, he pushed us into, he's himself is very much influenced by Deftones. Friends with the Deftones, so they hang out and stuff. So they play guitar and stuff together. So it's it rubs off. But Z-Roc's he's playing 8-string guitars mostly now too. So like, we wrote everything with 8-string. And so he really pushed us to more into like what he would call like the Sacramento thing or whatever. There's like this certain way of playing the guitar and like the groove that it establishes that I guess that, not that I guess, I get it because I understand it after it was like shown to me, explained to me. But like, the bands that can't come from that like territory, there is a sound, right? And Deftones, Far, Simon Says, and Papa Roach kind of has a lot of that in there too, even though they're a little bit of a different thing. But that was what he brought out in us, right? That like I don't think we would have gotten from anyone else that we could have worked with, right? Where it was like he was very intentional about like we're gonna lean into this because like nobody's gonna listen to you guys and be like, oh, these guys are from Pittsburgh. I don't know what that means, but like like if it just like it just doesn't sound. It just has its own. It sounds like we're from. It just gives us a little bit more of that flavor, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into your song Drain. It starts out with like a Korn Deftones guitar riff, and then it kicks in, and you, you sing, "I want more. I want to conquer the world." Tell me a little bit about that song.
Well, the funny thing about music is, and I think it's all art, but like specifically music, because when we're writing lyrics, at least unless it's a country song or something, usually it's it's more a theme, right? This it's not necessarily a story. It's not necessarily a linear thing, right? It's very ambiguous and so it can be more relatable, right? And that's I think what makes a good song is that you can hear it, and regardless of what I wrote it about, it can mean something to you, and we can still connect that it means something to both of us, but it doesn't have to be the same for the same reason, right? So in the same in the same way, songs and their meanings evolve even for the people that write them. But Drain is really about growth, right? And like I'm found, and some of my experiences the last couple years are, have really like, I've really what's the word? I guess solidified this belief for me, or this feeling for me. But unfortunately, I think one thing you learn as an adult is that not everybody really grows at the same rate or grows up at all. Listen, I'm 12 years old at heart. I look at what I do. My hair's green. I jump around stage and scream. But like, it's a time and a place, right? And like, there's such thing about you have to be an adult sometimes too. So, but I unfortunately not everybody grows up, and not everybody grows. But even like within a relationship, if you're all seriousness, like you don't always. Not everyone grows at the same rate in terms of just like emotional development and like goals and ambitions and just like I guess maturity, but just everyone can kind of like we literally grow apart, right? Like that is a real thing, right? And I don't think when you're younger, you don't really aren't alive long enough and haven't had long enough relationships to really quantify what that means and what that can look like. But like we really do. And it doesn't happen with everybody, but like you can grow apart from people, and it can lead to relationships ending and however that goes down. But like it's a sad thing, and I think it's really hard to I think it's a frustrating realization as an adult that that's what's happening when it happens, but it happens. And so the song is kind of it's a commentary on that, on growth, and it's the lyrics that you're reading, it's kind of like in some way I'm saying that's not like I'm somebody that wants to experience everything. I want to like feel it all. I want to like have the full like human experience and like go through the pain of growth and the struggles of it and whatever that means, wherever that leads me. And like, it kind of like, why aren't you that? Like, why don't you want that too? Right? Like, I don't understand, like, why you wouldn't want that for yourself. And like, that's not the answer though, right? Like, everybody kind of has to make that choice themselves and decide to grow and put themselves through what it would take to get there, right? And that's an internal, a very internal, personal thing, right? So it's just really, the song, the kind of back and forth of it is that conflict playing out for me. And the chorus is very hopeful though, right? Like it's like, hey, like I think that it's, it's not too late, right? Like I'm still, it's still in there if you want it to, right? And the video, which is also out now, kind of like brings that to life as more of like an internal conflict, right? Where like, if you're, you either choose to grow or you die, right? And that like, Zoja from Reign of Z is our star, our resident dungeon demon, who like is kind of like that force, right? And if it's like in my head that I'm having this conflict, she's kind of that force that is draining.
Your dark shadow.
Yes. Yeah. The thing that's kind of sabotaging growth and development and moving forward, right? There's whatever that is, whatever that conflict is for you, that's kind of what she represents.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done like some healing, and I've been doing some healing the last couple years, and something I just want to tell you is like, some people come into our lives for a short time, some people come in for longer, but it's what we learn or they learn that really matters.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting because you're right. And I think this one is, Drain is kind of like, if you take that perspective, is like, there is, but like, that is part of the issue with that, right? Is that the same thing that would prevent someone from growing is probably the same thing that would prevent them from learning from the like split or whatever that thing is, right? So it's like, that's kind of what the song is questioning, like, where does that end, right? And I think for some people there isn't an answer, right? Like, when do you actually like learn from something like this, right? And that's always a choice, I think, but that's kind of the question the song is asking too.
Yeah, like how many times do you have to keep on making the same mistake before you figure it out?
Some people, that I think that they just don't know. They don't. It's like, this is funny. It's kind of like the Tootsie Pop, or whatever. How many licks it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, and you bite on it, you break your teeth. So.
Confrontation, explode, break every single bone, repeat. Oh, you'll never learn, you fucking lie. So reap what you sow. Lower your shields, muzzle the knot. I'm still reaching for you. Pull at the roots, need you to feel. We cannot grow here.
Okay, let's go into your new song is going to be released this week. Failure Defines.
I know this is coming out after, but it's release day in about 3 hours and 50 minutes. Midnight.
It the song starts out with like chugging guitars during the verse, and you say self-inflicted wound, and then shift the narrative. Like, tell me a little bit about that line. Is that like you shifting the narrative in favor of yourself, or you're inflicting the wound on yourself and saying it's from somebody else?
It's a great question. I'm glad I get to answer this because I don't think anyone could pull the meaning out of it that it really is. Like, again, it's one of those things like it's up to your interpretation, whatever it means to you. But the way that I actually mean it is like a very twisted play on one words that it's so shot and left for dead, which is me in this instance. Self-inflicted wounds shift the narrative, meaning the other person screwed up their story, and the like, you know, the that they were trying to tell the narrative of what left me shot and left for dead. So self-inflicted wounds shift the narrative. It's kind of like somebody trying to get away with a crime and leaves their fingerprints on something, you know? So it's kind of like okay, if the film starts with my dead body, it's kind of like it's kind of like reverse. You starting to go in reverse to piece the truth together.
Okay, so the song is kind of like a story like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Not necessarily. It's just more of that, like, I think the assumption, like you said, would be like that lyric means that like I'm shifting the narrative or that I shot myself, right? Or whatever. But no, it's really that like there's like a crime scene, there's an investigation, and really what that means is that the person trying to get away with the crime isn't going to get away with it because of their self-inflicted wound.
Self-inflicted wounds shift the narrative. Build my life around your silhouette. Dancing by all my friends. What are you waiting for? Just pull the plug and take my life away. I don't wanna stay, and I don't wanna hurt you anymore. I don't wanna stay. I've always been alone. It only hurts when I wanted to. Then again, what's wrong with suffering? Inside the darkest dream, I'll hide. Failure defines
Do you have any upcoming shows?
Yes, we do. So we're actually going to be in Erie for the first time, Centennial Hall on July 11th. And we're playing with a band from, I think they're from like Michigan, Chicago area. Like they're kind of like split in that area. See This Through. So they're doing like a kind of a summer tour. We'll be supporting them on the Erie date. And so that's July 11th. And then the following weekend, we're back in Pittsburgh, Mr. Roboto project with TRUSS from Cleveland. We're very, very excited to finally play with.
Okay, cool. What are your plans for the rest of this year?
Well, so we're definitely, I mean, we're always going to be opportunistic with shows, right? And that's, you know, it's kind of a developing situation with, you know, kind of how our calendar plays out from here. But the main goal is, you know, is to get back into the studio. So, I mean, loose plan, obviously, is for this collection of songs to build into an EP, right? Which, you know, I would think would be coming out sometime early next year. But the goal is to get back in the studio, you know, September, October, sometime where we're able to say that like the songs are, you know, I kind of want to try to go into the new year with those songs being, you know, done and kind of start talking about release plans. But yeah, definitely get back into the studio. And then we have a video. So Failure Defines comes out tonight, midnight. So and once everyone sees this, it'll already be out there. And we shot a music video for that. So that will be coming in a few weeks. And then we have a third single coming in mid-July. I don't have the release date in front of me, but it'll be like a month from now. So
what can we expect from that song compared to the first two so far?
different. So it's kind of a Goldilocks and the Three Bears situation, where it's a little kind of, we're covering the whole spectrum, right? So Drain is your heaviest side. Failure Defines is right in the middle, and Just Take One is in the name of the third single, and it's going to be more of a ballad, like kind of like Spirit Box, our song Spirit Box, but it has its edge as well. So, you know, don't read too far into that, but yeah, it's going to be, you know, it's more like it's piano driven, and it's going to be more of a kind of a ballady feel.
Cool. Where can we find you at? Facebook, Instagram?
So our main channels that we're at this point are Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. All three are at Guides Official. And then, you know, YouTube, we're obviously for the music videos. And then our website is guidesmusic.com.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thanks for coming on the show today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think we covered everything. I just want to thank everyone so much for all the support over the last 3 years. We're just happy to be here, and we're just keep going, and can't wait to see everyone again live, and just you know, keep streaming the songs and checking back for updates. And Randy, I can't thank you enough for all the support as well, and just, you know, great to catch up and glad to be here. So hopefully we get to do it again sooner next time.
Cross-examine lies, misdirected trust.